Ladies and gentlemen, the beard is here!
How'd you feel about that, Dan?
I got it out of my system.
All right, so everybody, Dan's got a beard growing now, and Dan got a haircut, and he got them all cut, not just one of them. So we'll start off with Dan's beard. Dan, I see you're trying to copy me here. What do you got? What do you got going on over there?
This is, without a shadow of a doubt, the most electrifying beard in all of K-Town, Kennedy Township, Pittsburgh, PA. I myself am going to grow the ultimate playoff beard. So come the third week, whatever the hell it is of April, I will be ready to kick some ass in the beard-a-thon. Bring it.
All I say is I guarantee you, come April, you're going to look like Nick Bonino. I'm telling you right now.
I know I'll look. I know he's somewhere on this poster here, but there he is. I'm looking at him right there.
All right, guys, so we got a lot to talk about tonight, but we're going to start in the Western Conference tonight real quick, and there'll be a segue into the Penguins, I promise you, so stay tuned here. Dan, let's talk about last night's Chicago-Minnesota game. What'd you think?
Oh, what didn't I think? This was just a matchup of two of the preeminent teams in the Western Conference, specifically their division. They brought out the best in each other. Minnesota, obviously the top dog in the division right now. Chicago, obviously number 2. They're not that far behind. But I will give the Wild the edge. Right now, they are the better team. But Chicago, they're always going to be in the mix. They know how to win. And, even though, the game was tied at times and, the Wild kept coming back, Chicago kept battling back as well. And this thing went into overtime. And when that happened, boy, was that just electric or what? The chances in this game, and I'm just looking at the stats right here. The shots on goal, 32 for the Hawks, 38 for the Wild. I mean, wow, just great stuff right there.
Definitely, I watched I got to watch the second period of that game. It was a lot of back and forth hockey, I'll be honest. I was expecting a little bit more defensive show between the two, but they really duked it out in the offensive zone. A lot of trade chances both ways. I will say, the second goal by Minnesota in the second period, he was offside.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know how they called that inconclusive when you see the puck change directions when it's over the line and his foot it's offside. It drove me nuts that they said it was inconclusive, but and it just that was so. The refs got that wrong. I don't care. The camera's right there. He got it wrong.
There was another call. What was it? It was like goaltender interference when really the one guy was pushed in by the Hawk player. So you can make an argument for that as well. Yeah. So. But overall, just to me, games like that are why I love hockey. High scoring, high octane, not a 1-0 or 2-1 game. This was a 4-3, OT game. And I love these type of games, back and forth. Really just awesome play.
Right. I love it. Anytime that it goes back and forth and you got, especially with the call of Doc Emmerich on NBC. Oh, he makes for a great game. That was phenomenal to watch. But here's my question for you, Dan. Is Minnesota the real deal this year? I know you harked on them last year. Do you think Minnesota is really a real deal this year, or are they just going to flutter off when the playoffs roll?
No, I think they're going to be a challenge. They're obviously going to have to go up against the Hawks, that would be a great playoff series. No, that would be a great playoff series. It'd be a damn tough test for the Hawks. I could even see them beating my Hawks. I have to be realistic here, but I could also see Chicago. It could go either way, and I'd love a series like that, whatever round it would be in. I'd say it would probably be either a second or third round matchup, depending on how the standings are in the Central. Right. But, you look at the difference in points. Minnesota, 76. Chicago ain't that far behind, 71. They're really close, but I give the edge to Minnesota. Look at Nashville. They're at 60. That's where the drop-off is. Look at that. Right. Look at that. That's just incredible.
Well, you know why? It's because the Eastern Conference is taking all the points this year, if you haven't noticed.
I'm looking at it.
The race for 8th place in the East is ridiculous, but that's for another night. Dan, here's what I wanted to talk about, and this is where we're segueing into Penguins hockey now for the Penguins fans out there. I had this discussion earlier in the week with another friend of mine, and we were talking about how it's always been Crosby, Ovechkin, always 1 and 2 in terms of who's the best in the league overall. Not just, I understand Connor McDavid's having a phenomenal freshman year, if you will, but overall, the two best players in the NHL, it's always been the two of them. But here's my question I brought up to him. I said, how long until everyone in the NHL starts realizing Ovechkin really might not be the number 2 guy anymore? Maybe it's somebody else. And here's why. Sidney Crosby has one less year under his belt. He's already, he's got 2 points into 1,000. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
He's got 998.
Mm-hmm.
It took him one less year than Ovechkin did to get to that mark, and he'll get it by this year, no doubt. There's no way he doesn't get 2 more points, so he'll have it. But he's done it in one less year. He's a 2-time Stanley Cup champ winner. He's got all the international accolades. He's got all this. He's got the scoring titles. He's got MVP. You name it. Crosby's got his name on every award in sports with hockey. Ovechkin still doesn't have a Stanley Cup after 11 years of being in the league now. I'm making the argument that he is no longer the second best player in the NHL. I'm making the argument that somebody like Patrick Kane is number 2, and Ovechkin has now fallen down to number 3. What do you think about that, Dan?
I agree. Another point that you should bring up is Crosby's. You said he's done it in a year faster compared to Ovechkin's points wise. Remember the fact Crosby has been injured, so he's missed a lot longer than Ovechkin. So you have to consider that. Right. Yeah, I mean Ovechkin. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. I would love to have him on my team if I did. So I can't take away the talent from him, but he's come up short when it's come to Stanley Cups and gold medals. He hasn't done that either. So, it's a good point. I never considered it. I always thought Crosby, Ovechkin, but Kane, he's right up there. He is definitely one of the best players in the league currently today. And then you got a McDavid coming in and Matthews, who, McDavid, look out for him. He's going to.
I know he has had a phenomenal first year. I mean, unreal what he's done over there in Edmonton. I mean, I'm just
so he could perhaps pass Ovechkin, and be right in the mix. I could see it. We'll see.
Right. So we'll see on that. But it was just something I brought up. It's nothing against Ovechkin, but it's just, in all honesty, the accolades show he's not really. You can't really compare. Yeah, he's a great goal scorer, but I don't think you can really compare the two of them anymore. Crosby's got a second Stanley Cup. Ovechkin doesn't have one yet. That's a big thing in the league, is hosting the Cup. Yeah, it's what it's all about. You don't go to say, oh, well, we have 6 President's Cup trophy winners and never made it to the finals. No one cares. I'm sorry.
Mario Lemieux, remember what he once said. The only 2 things that matter are the scoring title and the Stanley Cups, because those are the 2 that are not voted on.
Right.
And that's all that matters, in my opinion.
Right. Well, speaking of star players, Dan, we'll segue off that topic. Genny Malkin is potentially going to be in the lineup on Saturday night. They replaced his no-contact jersey with a regular jersey at practice today. Do you think we'll see him Saturday?
We could. No need to rush him back. If he ain't ready Saturday, then just hold him off till when? The next game's Tuesday. It's against Arizona, so I don't think they would be at a huge disadvantage if you go in against. It's in Arizona, one of the worst teams in the league.
Arizona, let me pull it up here for you. Arizona, the Coyotes are, I believe, 29th in the league, 17-28 with a total of 40 points. That's it. Practically out of the playoffs. So, but here was the other thing we were talking about pre-podcast here. I'm saying there's 2 ways you could look at this. A, they could put him in against Arizona and let him get some of that rust off from not playing and not seeing action. And maybe it'll hamper them a little bit against Arizona, but at least you're playing Arizona. But on the other hand, like you said, you could let him rest out another game, make sure he's ready to go, because after that they play at home against Vancouver and then Winnipeg Thursday. So Vancouver is a middle-of-the-road team over in the West. There's still a challenge, no doubt. The Sedin brothers I've always loved the Sedin brothers in the West. Never get to watch them enough, but I just think that's a great story. The 2 brothers play on the same team on the national stage. It's great. But you make a good point. Maybe he'll be back Saturday, but my thing is I don't want him to bring too much I don't want him to slow the game down for the Penguins, because he's going to be rusty. We all know that. He's been out for a few weeks since the All-Star break. He's going to have that rust of not having that high-octane action. So we'll see what they end up doing with that. But it's good to see that he's got the no-contact jersey off. He's starting to practice with the team. That's looking good for him. So we'll transition to another topic, which gets us closer to tonight's game, which is coming up shortly. Dan, we know it's looming over everybody's head. Fleury's not playing as much anymore. Saw his first action in 3 weeks. He had a good game. 22 of 23 saves. Not bad night in net. That one he probably could have stopped, but what are you going to do? Here's my thing, though. We probably have a good idea he's going to get traded at some point. Trade deadline's coming up. I have 2 teams in my mind that I think he might get traded to, and I want to know what you think. I'm thinking Colorado, simply because they're the worst team in the league, and one of their biggest faults is their goaltending. Their save percentage from either goaltender is just atrocious. They have no defense. Their forwards are good. Their scoring is there somewhat, but their biggest concern has to be the goaltending. And defense wins championships, and I feel that's got to be the first place they got to start rebuilding that team. On the other hand, you have a team in the West that needs a goaltender, has everything else pretty much, but that goaltending issue is holding them back, and that is in the Dallas Stars. Both goaltenders are posting a sub-900 save percentage, but Dallas is doing pretty well out in the West, but that's what's really killing them is they're just giving up too many goals. Do you think we see Fleury traded to one of those teams in an effort to pick up someone like a forward or maybe even an enforcer? Because the one piece I feel the Penguins are missing is that brute force, that when someone goes out after Crosby or Hagelin or Connor Sheary, they don't have that bully that goes right out afterwards and follows that guy.
Did we need that last year in the playoffs? I don't know if you need that anymore. Back in the maybe 5 years ago, I'd say, yeah, you would. But nowadays, I don't know if it's that much of an importance. I would always say yes, but just look at last year. I don't know, enforcer-wise, maybe forward depth, maybe even some help on the defense, I think would be a more pressing issue. It's possible Rutherford shops Fleury. I don't know. I haven't really heard too much about it. I know the deadline is coming up. I would rather keep both guys until the summer. I just think, Fleury, he has won 2 Stanley Cups. I remember he got us to that to be able to get us into that second Stanley Cup. He was playing lights out last season, which I feel like people kind of forget, when they push him out of the way. But I would keep both. I really would.
Right, I agree. It was his play in the regular season that got them in a position to make a playoff run. I mean, they were, like we always talked about, 12th place in December. And it was his phenomenal goaltending that basically kept them in until the offense could get rolling on all 8 cylinders again when Sullivan stepped in. So I agree. Fleury really has shown his love for this team. He has showed his devotion to winning in this team. He's shown his love to the fans. The fans, if we all know, love Fleury back. It's going to be a shame because there's a high chance we're not going to see him as a Penguin come next year. There's a really high chance, unless for some reason, God forbid, Murray has a terrible injury or Murray goes into a slump that just, like, I've been waiting for that sophomore slump that we haven't seen from him yet, that we'll see Fleury probably in a different uniform. And how does that make you feel?
Don't forget, it happens. The 2 that I knew, well, actually, Letang would be 3. So Malkin, Crosby, Letang, I figured would be the ones that would be locked up for a long time. Very rarely do you see, maybe you have your 1 or 2, 3 maybe, but to keep 4 of the same players, I don't know. That's really tough to do in a salary cap era. So it'll be bittersweet, but like I said last time, Flower had a great run with this team. 2 Stanley Cups. That's great. And if he does leave, do a thank you video. We'll reminisce. That would be great. Do like a video tribute for him. So
just like the Penguins always do, they're a class act whenever they come.
They will.
Players come back in off the road, or if it's their last game with the team. So I will say though, wherever Fleury does go, if he does get traded, I will be one of those bandwagon fans as long as he's there.
I'll support him. I don't care. Mark's class act guy, family guy. He's a man's man, and just love the guy. He's great.
Right. Well, let's transition, since we talked about Colorado potentially being one of the places he goes. Tonight's game, Dan, playing Colorado. I believe it is on the road. Yeah, because it's 9 o'clock start. We would never start this late. But on the road, Colorado, they had a good game against Montreal earlier in the week. I believe they shut them out 4-0. At least that's what I saw on the last update on that game. They're dead last in the league. And when I mean dead last, they're dead last. I think they just got over they just got their 15th win of the season. The Penguins, just to give you an idea, have not lost 15 regulation games yet. So Penguins are looking at 33-13-6. On the opposite side, Colorado 15-33-2. Dead last in the league, lowest in the points. I doubt they'll even get 50 points this year. It's a rebuild. It really is. That team fell apart the last couple years. They're at the position now where they're in a rebuild phase. And like we talked about a little bit earlier, they need goaltending and they need defense severely. If you were to give them grades on stuff, I would say their forwards are a B Their defense is a C-, and the goaltending's a D right now. Special teams is the same thing, about a D. So there's a lot of places on the defensive and special teams ends that need improved. So they got a long way to go, but they're one of those teams that when you end up playing them, for example, Montreal, when they lost to them, it's like, how the heck did you lose to them? And it's almost like because the teams assume it's a guaranteed win. And I'm hoping the Penguins don't fall in that trap tonight. What do you think tonight's game is going to look like?
If the Pens don't take them too lightly, which they shouldn't, and I don't think we've seen – if you think we've seen too much of that from them, I mean, in the past we've seen that from the Pens, but this season, ever since Sullivan's taken over, I don't think you're going to – he'll make sure he tells them, even though this is, not a great team, look what they did to Montreal. Make sure that doesn't happen to you, and that's right. Keep the focus and the message in that locker room.
Right. Play 60 minutes. It doesn't matter who you're playing. You bring your game to the ice.
You can
play
beat
our
them.
game.
You can.
Yeah.
Just don't take them lightly.
And here was the one that it's a good point you brought up. We don't take anybody. The Penguins don't take anybody lightly. I think they learned their lesson when they went into Columbus this year, and they got throttled 7-1. And they had this notion of, we're the Pittsburgh Penguins, they're the Columbus Blue Jackets that just happen to be on this fun winning streak at the point. We'll go in and take care of business and we'll end the streak. And they got throttled 7-1. I think that was their wake up call, that they can't take any team too lightly because it's going to.
And look how they bounced back against Columbus. Point in case.
Right. That was a good game anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll wrap it up on this, Dan. What's your prediction for tonight's game? You think it's going to be a win, or you think it's a no?
It's a win. I don't know. Last time I don't know.
Last time you were wrong. So yeah, you
3-1
had the win, but okay.
3-1 Penguins. That's my prediction.
So I hope they don't play the silly game of, we'll walk in and get a win. I'm gonna assume they won't. So I'm gonna say they're also gonna get a win. I'm never good with predicting the score, so I don't bother with it. But I'm gonna say they'll get a win tonight. It should be a good game. I believe Murray is in net again, of course. So there should be solid goaltending on the end. They just have to one thing they do have to watch, as the last point we'll talk about here, Letang's getting hot-headed again, if you haven't noticed. Have you seen that? He's starting to become that Letang that was costing us a lot of penalties a couple years ago. And I'm wondering if you're seeing that or if that's just me.
I'll pay attention to it tonight. We'll see what I haven't really noticed.
So I'm just seeing he's starting to bark at the refs a lot on calls, and he's taking a lot of after hit, slashes and jabs at players, and he's getting caught on it. That's the only thing I'm concerned about, is he's going to go down that road again, and I'm hoping Sullivan sees it before it gets too far out of hand like it did the one year.
Sullivan won't put up with that.
Right, and if you remember the Detroit game where we lost 5-1, and he had I think 10 minutes in penalties, and it wasn't even a misconduct, and then he got the misconduct. That was 2 years ago, and I don't want to see that out of him again. He's a great player, but he tends to run into this hot-headed thing. So hopefully they'll walk out of Colorado tonight with a victory. I'm sure Colorado's going to give them everything, considering regardless of where you're at in the standings, you always want to beat the reigning Stanley Cup champion. That's always that little extra zest, and that could give them some momentum moving forward, saying, hey, if we pulled off this win, you feel pretty good about yourself that night. Even though you're in dead last in the league, you said, hey, I beat the Stanley Cup champs. So we'll see what tonight brings. As for us, guys, Dan and I are done. I got my Fleury shirt on just because, Fleury fan. Dan's got his Pens hockey on. Dan, you want to give your channel plug before we head out?
Might as well. Another big weekend coming up, guys. We got my YouTube channel, youtube.com/DanielGaza412 for all my latest thoughts on the WWE product. Don't forget, this Sunday we got Elimination Chamber. I will be doing my Elimination Chamber predictions and previews video before this upcoming pay-per-view. And then join me live after the big pay-per-view extravaganza. I will be breaking down everything that took place inside Satan's structure, the Elimination Chamber. It's going down live at 11 this Sunday on my YouTube channel. So be there or be square. How's that for a wrestling promo?
I always like triangles, but, can't. It's not here or the other. Anyway, good stuff, Dan. I'm sure it'll be great stuff. I always tune in and watch your stuff. It is kind of fun stuff to watch, even though I'm not a wrestling fan.
Thank you.
Not to hate, but I always like watching. So, but guys, that's it. We're done. Hopefully you guys enjoy and stay up late for the late night edition of Penguins Hockey tonight as they're on the road in the West against Colorado. For Dan and I, this is it this time. We'll catch you guys next time. Take care, guys.
Bye.